Hello, today we're going to be talking about protest movements and new wave feminism. At the end of this presentation, you should be able to do these two things. Explain how this new wave of feminism was different than that during the 1910s, and describe how trends in women's participation in the workplace changed during this time. During the 1960s, a counterculture movement rejecting societal norms developed. This was largely in response to changing opinions regarding the Vietnam War and civil rights. Other issues also emerged to fuel this movement, including women's rights, gay rights, attitudes regarding sex, and attitudes regarding authority figures. The largest counterculture group were the hippies, celebrating free love and opposing the war in Vietnam. Other counterculture groups included beatniks, who focused on intellectualism, and punks, who focused on anarchy and lawlessness. These groups focused on popular culture like music and were anti-authoritarian and experimented with recreational drug use. This movement literally gave rise to the term sex, drugs, and rock and roll. These songs usually took the form of protest songs, raising awareness about the social issues that plagued the day. We still celebrate protest songs today, with things like Kendrick Lamar's All Right or Green Day's 21 Guns. During the summer of 1969, the hippies organized a 3-day music festival called Woodstock. This became one of the defining moments of the counterculture movement. Now, let's take a time out for a riddle. A father and a son have a car accident and both are badly hurt. They are both taken to separate hospitals. When the boy is taken in for an operation, the surgeon says, "I cannot do the surgery because this is my son." How is this possible? And I'm going to let you think on that for a couple seconds. The answer is that the doctor is the boy's mother. How many of you got that right? The reason that this works as a riddle is because at the time it was created, many women weren't able to have those sorts of jobs. So the idea is that people get confused because they think that if the doctor is if the patient is the doctor's son, then the doctor must be the father. It kind of throws people for a loop to find out that the doctor is the boy's mother. Hopefully that didn't trick very many of you guys because hopefully times are changing. One of the ideas that they challenged was that of a male-dominated society. Traditionally, men had run the household and women held subservient roles in both home and the workplace. Women had previously fought for the right to vote and achieved it in 1919. However, they were still limited in society and additional progress had been hard to come by. As such, women were relegated to very specific jobs that usually fell into a caregiving or helper role. Women were viewed as caregivers, so they were allowed to be teachers and nurses. Women were subservient to men, so they were allowed to be secretaries. As a result, women's earning potential was severely limited. In 1960, women on average were only paid about 60% of what men made. Additionally, certain jobs were unavailable to them. This counterculture movement during the 1960s began to challenge these norms and fight for additional workplace rights. Note, it had been the fact that pregnancy was considered a disability and a fireable offense. Yes, as a woman, you could be fired from your job because you got pregnant. In fact, most teaching jobs had a clause in the contract that stated if you got pregnant, you would be fired, or if you were caught dating, or if you got married. Another issue at the center of the second wave feminist movement centered around reproductive health. birth control and the lack thereof became a controversial issue. It's no coincidence that the Supreme Court decision Roe v. Wade regarding the availability of abortions occurred during this time period, 1973 to be exact. Today, things have gotten incrementally better. Women typically earn about 80% of what their male equivalents make, which not totally equal, but better than the 60% that it had been. However, issues surrounding reproductive health still persist. Healthcare providers are not required to cover birth control, funding for Planned Parenthood has been eliminated, and attacks against abortion have increased in recent years. Checking for understanding. How did this wave of feminism differ than that during the 1910s? And also, you should be able to tell me how trends in women's participation in the workplace changed during this time period.